right, here I am. Okay, guys, very welcome to yet another live stream here on the Mentor Pilot channel. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic wherever you are. I have just had my first cup of coffee. Well, it's probably my fifth cup of coffee today, and I hope that you have yours as well. Because the way that this works, I don't know if you have been on one of my live streams before, but first of all, I have a message here that normally means that someone sees that something is wrong. I hope that you can all hear me. Anyway, so the way this works is that basically this is supposed to be pretty much like just having a cup of coffee with a good friend, you know, someone who's as equally interested in aviation as you guys are, but who can maybe and hopefully explain some things to you. That's what I want to try to accomplish with this, and pretty much that's all that it's in. If it's already quite a lot of people here. There's 600 or 700 people here already, which means that there's going to be a lot of questions, guys. So I'm going to be grabbing questions that I see. But if you have a question that you really want me to answer, all right, something that's really important to you, something that you want to talk about, well, then you can use the super chat function. That's the little dollar sign below the chat. It means that you are donating a certain amount of money to the channel, to me, to the work that I do, and it also highlights the message so that I can see it, so that I can answer it. And as always with all my live streams, guys, I guarantee you that I will be answering all of the super chat questions. Now, sometime, well, hopefully, depending on if I can legally answer them. Obviously, I'm going to do my best to try to answer them. So basically, that's what we have. And yeah, I see there's quite a few people already here in the super chat. That makes me really happy to see. And then obviously I'm going to take questions from wherever there is. If it comes in a normal chat, if there's something that's interesting, it's all for you guys. That this is what this live stream is for. You probably noticed that I don't do them as often anymore, and that is because we're in a really complicated place right now in work. And by the way, if you see that I'm starting to sweat, it's because it is crazy warm in here. It is really. My wife is watching a series on TV outside, so I need to close the door, and it gets really, really warm. But like I said, right now we are in the equivalent of a nuclear winter in the aviation industry. So I have tons of things that I have to sort out with my normal work. But believe you me when I say that it's less and less that I have to do. All right, it's less and less flying, it's less and less things to do. So that means that there will be more and more things that I can do together with you guys, right? I'm going to be focusing more and more on my channel, just like I did during the lockdown. If I see that I'm actually not going to be able to work anything during the winter, which is getting more and more likely right now, well, in that case, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not just live streams, but I'm going to focus more on creating stuff for you guys. I am so fortunate. I consider myself so fortunate to have you guys following me and the channel and be able to work on something else. I know that there's so many of my colleagues, not only in my own airline, but in other airlines out there who are struggling, who does not have a secondary, like a plan B or another job to do. And I would love to have your suggestions on how you think that I could be helping them out. If there's something that the channel could do in order to help out the industry and people who are in need in the industry, I'd love to have some thinking from you guys on that, because I think that there's going to be room for a lot of help during the coming month. And we are starting up the Airline Pilot Club, by the way. The Airline Pilot Club is going to be available for memberships very, very soon. All right. Now you might ask yourself, why would you start something up to help people get into the industry in a time like that? And that would be a fair question to ask, but that's not really what we're doing. What me and Andy have set out to do with the Airline Pilot Club from the very, very beginning was to help and to guide, first of all, for those of you who really want to get into the aviation industry, to get a little bit of knowledge about yourself so that you know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and also, crucially, how to deal with those things. And that's number one. That's the first thing that we will be doing through our indicative assessment, which, by the way, when we open up, is going to be available for anyone. You do not need to be a member of the Airline Pilot Club to do the indicative assessment, but you can only get it through us, right? And why would you need to do that? Well, that's because a lot of you guys are going to need help from, for example, your parents or maybe your rich uncle or whatever to fund the training, because right now, and that's another thing we'll get to, right now, unsecured funding through banks is just not happening because of the huge risk that the banks are seeing with the aviation industry right now. But anyway, a good way of knowing if you have what it takes and to show your parents and whoever is helping you out that you actually do have the aptitude and the attitude that it takes, is to do the indicative assessment, to get a very clear picture of, I am good at this, I am really good at this, and then to use that to bring you forward towards the next step, which is what we really want to do, which is to help you into schools that we can guarantee are good schools, right? So instead of you having to go out and ask thousands of schools which one would be the best one for you, we in the club will be able to help you, to point you towards what we have checked out, stuff that we know with the years and years of experience that both me and Andy and the rest of the team have, can say that this school, this ATO is good. They have a high quality standard when it comes to their syllabi, their instructors, their aircraft, their location, their economy, all of that. So, if you go here, you will get your money's worth of training and then help you up towards the airline job. So we will be opening up, guys, and it's very soon. I encourage you all to go to the airlinepilotclub.com, because it has happened a lot. It's just about to open now. It is there, so you'll be able to start to see the different steps that you need to go through in order to follow our kind of sequence in to join this world of aviation. But the point I want to make here, guys, is that it has become even more important now to know that you have what it takes before you start a training, to go to the right schools, to make sure that you have your absolute best chance of getting in if you choose to go in right now. And there's no question in my mind, guys, there will be a need for pilots, all right? This is not the end of the airline world. This is a huge downturn, it's the biggest that I've ever seen in my experience, but it is not the end, all right? The things will pick up, and when they do, there will be a need for new pilots, all right? And I think personally, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but based on what I can see right now, is I think it's going to be about 2 years, 2.5 years before the real need is coming, which means that it is going to be a really, really hard time for anyone who's finishing training right now for the next 2 years. We're hoping to be able to help those people as well. But if you start your training now, it will take you 2 years to do that, which means it should theoretically be a good time to kind of be finished with your training once this whole downturn has gone over. All of this is, of course, stipulated on the fact that there's not a second or third wave of the coronavirus, and that we get some kind of vaccine and get this thing under control. But that's what we see. That's how we are predicting things, and that's how the airlines are predicting things as well. So that's from the Airline Pilot Club. I hope, guys, that you have a chance to go to theairlinepilotclub.com and check out what the 8 different steps that we have in store to kind of get an idea of what it is that we're trying to do, and then be ready. Sign yourself up to the email list, because we will be sending out emails as soon as we open up for memberships. And it is likely that you will definitely want to be among the first ones to pick up on this, because there might be a limitation on how many indicative assessments that we're able to give out in order to give the quality of the assessments back to you. But anyway, that's all. So without further ado, let's go over to the questions here. I see we have Grant Rennie here is giving me something to eat, which is great. Sarah Ansel, it's great to have you here as well. Thank you very much for your support. Joachim O, hype. Yay! Reese Chandler, doing my PPL. Went solo last week at 10.5 hours. That's great, Reese. That's 10.5 hours. I think that's about the same amount of hours I had when I went solo first. That's a very low amount of hours to go solo, and as always, your instructors would have only let you go solo if they really believed in you and your abilities, which means that you're doing a great job. So shout out to Reese and congratulations to you solo. I hope someone was there to cut your tie or to throw water on your head, as is the custom to do. Bruce Williams, any comments on the report Boeing is adding synthetic airspeed to the Max? No, I have no comments on that because I have not heard it. I would be surprised if they did, but they might be. And also, when it comes to any news on the Max, I'm not really at liberty to talk too much about it. And why is that? Well, I have understood, and I've said this in previous live streams as well. I've understood that in my role as a type rating examiner and as an active pilot who's going to fly these planes, it's probably not prudent of me to go out and to comment too much around the Max until it's back flying again. Because it's just like I realize the kind of reach that I have. And so I want to make sure that what I say is absolutely correct. Hence, I'm not going to be speculating. All right. It's just like if there was a recent accident, I wouldn't want to speculate on that. But in this case, I am actively involved, as in I'm going to be flying this plane. I'm going to be learning this plane, and my company is going to have this plane in this fleet. So I'm not. I'm going to stay clear of the Max thing for at least for the foreseeable future. 5, Simon. I hope it's Swedish coffee. Actually, it's not. I have Swedish coffee, but the problem is Swedish coffee is like getting gold down here. Like it is not easy for me. I have to every time I go to Sweden, I buy with me a couple of packages to bring with me. No, it's actually pod coffee, which is really good. I have to say. I shouldn't drink as much coffee as I do, but hey, on pilots we do drink a lot of coffee. It's known to happen. So, Jake Schroeder, if you could pilot any historic airline and no longer in service, which one would it be? The Concorde. Easily, the Concorde. Like, no questions asked there. It is by far one of my favorite airliners in the history. Not only through the fact that it is the fastest one or that flies the highest, but also because just the pure beauty of it, the pure force, the pure technological wonder that it was. So it would be an honor. But otherwise, I don't know. I mean, it would be cool to fly one of those early flying boats as well. It would be a challenge to say the least, but I would love to get my hands on those. And one that is still flying that I would love to try out is the Antonov 226. All right. I would love any of the Antonovs that are out there. Actually, I would love to get my hands on. I think they are awesome machines, and it was so cool to see, to fly with the kind of Russian mentality, to see how they do things. Now that I've flown Boeing for so long. So if you are sitting watching this and you're part of the Antonov company and you're in Ukraine, for example, and you think, hey, we should get that guy over, send me an email. I'd love to come over and check out the place and take the little lady for a spin. Jake, F1, Ferrari, McLaren. I hate flying, but my dream job is driving F1. All right, fair enough. So that's the thing. F1 and aviation are surprisingly alike. I have a friend of mine who I normally talk to when I just want to sit down and talk aviation and lie a little bit about whatever is going on. Not lie to each other, obviously, but that's what we say to Swedish when we want to sit and just talk to each other. He used to do aerodynamics. He was in the Swedish Air Force, and then he was doing a bit of aerodynamics for some F1 teams because they were so closely related when it came to the aerodynamics. So it was basically him who told me that it's extremely aligned, like very, very much so. So best of luck. Driving F1 is for a very, very few select people to do. So it's just about training, and having the right contacts, I'm guessing. Doug Pauly, Doug, great to have you here, Doug. Doug is here on almost all my live streams, and he's always supportive. So it's great to have you here, Doug. Best wishes in this horrible time. What are your thoughts on the cluster outbreak on a plane recently? Who is responsible? Should we all be flying at all? I have not heard that. I did not hear about any cluster outbreak on a plane. Feel free, Doug, to send me over the link to that to have a look. My opinion has been, as it has been from the beginning, that in the beginning of this pandemic, the borders should have been closed to try to limit it into one country. But once it became pandemic, as in once it has spread, so it's basically in all countries now, closing borders and stopping travel is not really going to help that much. What's going to help is us all following very proper protocols, and also the protocols that the scientists and the governments are issuing. So what I would like to see is, for example, in the European Union, I would like to see some kind of political courage. You know, it would be great to see the politicians sitting down and not just caring about their local constituents, but the whole world, but in this case, the whole of EU, and say, listen, if hospitality, travel is going to survive, if we want hotels and restaurants and we want airlines and infrastructure through the air to work or to exist in the future, well, then we should all sit down and we should have a single set of rules. Okay, we want everyone to have a corona test on entry into any country. For example, everyone needs to wear masks on board. The airlines need to have these cleaning protocols, but everything needs to be the same everywhere. We cannot have this whole, okay, so Germany is doing this and Spain is doing that and Ireland is doing this and UK is doing that, and then in the middle, no, we're going to change and we're going to change this to this. This is what's killing the industry at the moment. The industry is being killed by customers, passengers, not knowing whether or not they can go for a trip to Spain, because they don't know if they can go now. They're not going to go into quarantine, but maybe next week they will. And this uncertainty, the way that people have no idea whether or not they will be able to go on a vacation and come back on the same set of rules, just makes people stay at home. And some people will say, oh, that's the right thing to do. Well, I don't necessarily think so. And of course, I'm a pilot, I would say that, wouldn't I? But I think that adhering to the rules, making sure that we do all of these things properly, we keep social distancing where it's possible, we keep masks, we keep our hands away from the faces, we clean our hands, we use hand sanitizers, we stay at home when we are sick. You do not go outside when you are sick. I have been home. This whole last week, I was supposed to go with my family on a vacation, but I had a stomach bug and I also got some light fever. So I stayed at home. I was isolated. I took a PCR test and it was clear. All right, it wasn't a virus. But I stayed at home, even isolated from my whole family. All right, these are the things that we need to all do. And if everyone could do this, then we could go back to having some kind of normality. And these industries and the economy could continue to work. And this is, I think, something that... it all comes down to that. It comes down to having the same set of rules everywhere so people know what it is. We're humans. We adapt, right? When there's no vaccine, we're going to adapt to this. But we cannot believe or think that we are going to be just not doing all of these things for infinity and at the same time think that these industries are going to survive. It won't happen. So these are the things that I urge everyone to please obey by the rules they are and put pressure on the politicians to come up with guidelines, general guidelines that everyone does the same so that we can keep on living. Basically, that's what I would like to see. People might disagree with that, but that's I think is the only way forward. Rant over. Okay, cool. And yeah, to answer your question there, Dog, as well, the amount of work that the airline business has put into making sure that it's safe to fly is huge, right? The cleaning, the HEPA filters that we use on board, the fact that the air inside of a cabin gets changed every 1.5 minutes on average. I think completely changed, completely new air every 1.5 minutes. It's more than you'll get in a hospital. It's more than you'll get almost anywhere else. So yeah, I work in this. I have no problems going to work, but adhere to the rules. Do not fly if you're sick. Do all of the things that they tell you to do, and it should be completely safe. Galloway Harvey, thank you very much for your support. Eric Mills, would you please consider doing a video discussing the pros and cons of US next-gen ATC system and or its European equivalent? It's amazing. Eric, whenever I hear something like this, I want to make sure that I know exactly what it is that you're talking about. Like, we have several different new systems that are about to be implemented. So if you send an email to mentor.pilot@gmail.com with a link of what you're talking about, then I'll know whether or not it's something that I can actually do something about. So that would be really helpful. Thanks. Balai Sharat Kumar. Hi Balai, another one that's always following my live stream. Great to have you here. Do pilots use Cat 3 Autoland regularly? Often. Depends on what you mean by regularly. We tend to only use them when we need to. So that will be when the visibility is down to, around 200 meters, below 550 meters runway visual range, RVR. If it's above, we might still do Cat 3 if we think that there is a little bit of shaky likelihood of us seeing something at the minimum or not. But starting up Cat 3 is not something that's easily done. Like, you need to increase separation between aircraft. You need to there's a different type of electrical backup that is needed to be working in the airport. It's a shorter switch over time in case of an electrical interruption. There is restrictions on taxiing. There's loads of things that comes with that. So generally speaking, we fly Cat 1 if it is Cat 1. Cat 3 is something we will ask for if we think that we actually need it, or if it's obviously needed due to weather reasons. Sometimes we do practice Cat 3 landings, because for every sim we do, every 6 months, we need to, in my company, have done at least one Cat 3 landing and one monitored approach in order to renew it. We can do it in the sim as well, but it takes extra time. So we try to have that. And if there's no weather that's stipulated, then we can do a practice Cat 3. That still has the higher minimums. It's not safeguarded in the same way, so we have to be making sure that the system works properly. And it has to be a suitable runway and things like that. But then we can do it in order to kind of just practice the procedures with it. But otherwise, during the winter more than during the summer, and quite rarely. Confused Nyan. Why are you confused, Nyan? Thank you very much for your support anyway. Fredrik Korsvik Allenes. Is it worth using that much money to be a pilot? Oi, so that's the big question, isn't it? I think so, but this is a big but. I would be very careful with putting myself into too much debt at the moment. Okay, so why do I say this? I've always said that basically. Right now, it's a good example of what can happen. Remember, during my channel, during the 5 years that I've been doing this channel, when I've gotten this question, I've always said the same, is that up until last year, the industry had been doing crazy well. Like, it was just going up and up and up and up and up. There was just more and more and more pilots needed. And I kept saying that, yes, train to become a pilot, you are going to earn back the money. There's no question about that. But you never know when something strange happens. Now, I didn't say pandemic because I had honestly no idea that something like this could happen. But what I did say was, like, there could be a war breaking out, or there could be a hike in oil prices or something like that. Something that makes the industry suddenly drop, because the airline industry is always the first one to drop when the general economy drops. So that's what I told people. Like, be aware that can happen. Now it has happened. Now you're seeing it. You're seeing the drop. And of course, because the pandemic is a pandemic, it not only hits the economy of the world, it hits the airlines and the travel industry specifically. Okay, and that's the difference between earlier ones. It's kind of similar to 2001, 2002 crash that happened after 9/11, because then obviously there were aircraft involved as well, so people were afraid. So it hit, but it was just a very short dip. It was just a dip that lasted maybe 6 months or a year or so. This is deeper, okay? But what I've said is that if you earn the money, if you've been saving up for the money, let's say that you've been saving up all of the money that you have, you delay your training a little bit, and then you only have to maybe pay half of the price that's stipulated out of a loan. Well, then you're in a much better position if you find yourself in a situation like we are right now to weather through it, okay? Because I don't know, I mean, you probably notice if you're following LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever right now, you see that even pilots like myself, pilots with a lot of experience, are now losing their jobs, and they have to come out and then into the normal economy, find other jobs to do. And in fact, I have a specialist that I'm going to bring on probably my next live stream, actually, that's going to talk about how, if you are a pilot and you find yourself in a situation like this, how you should be using all of the amazing skills that you have in order to maximize your possibilities to get other jobs outside of the industry. But that's different. What I want to say is that if you train right now, if you can minimize the amount of loans that you're taking, and you start your training now, I think that you have a fairly good chance to get a job, not directly after training, but within 6 months to a year after your training is finished. That is in 2 years. So that is in two to 3 years. And I'm saying that because I know that the airline industry will look completely different when we get out of this. There will be some new actors, but there will also be the strongest all actors. And the strongest all actors, they are going to be grabbing market share. So you're going to see some airlines expanding like crazy because they can, because they have the possibility to do so. They have the money to do so. Those airlines are going to need a lot of pilots. Now they will be absorbing pilots that have gone out of other airlines as well. You know, some of the younger people that have lost their job now is going to be reabsorbed into these crazily expanding airlines. There are a few of them, probably 3 or 4 that I can name, but I'm not going to name them right now. Anyway, but they will be needing new pilots as well. And they will be needing new pilots because a huge amount of the baby boomers, the pilots that were born in the 1950s and the beginning of the 60s, they were scheduled to be retired, mandatory, about 2024, 2025. Now, a lot of those, especially in the US, have been given pre-retirement deals by their airline. So they are out of the workforce already. So a huge bit of this enormous amount of pilots are already pre-retiring. And the ones who didn't get deals, they are finding themselves now potentially out of a job and thinking about changing airline, doing a new OCC course, learning new SOPs, everything, and only for working maybe 2 to 3 years. So I'm going to guess that quite a few of those are just not going to bother with it. They're just going to leave the workforce now, going into doing something else, retiring or finding another job that they've had on the side anyway, and never come back again. So this means that there is a lot of pilots that disappears now that just will not come back. Okay. But when the expansion start kicking, remember everyone is talking about when we're back to 2019 levels. Okay. In 2019 levels, if you've seen the curve that I have put up on some of my other videos, you'll see that that's a huge number of new pilots needed in 2019, and it just keeps climbing. And if we ever get back to that, it means that there are thousands and thousands of new pilots needed. All right. That curve will be flattened out a little bit as the old pilots are reabsorbed, but then the new pilots will be needed. And this is why I'm telling you that, you know, if this was the end of the airline industry, well, then there wouldn't be any new pilots needed. But do you really believe that this is the end of the airline industry? Do you think that people will not travel in a few years? Ask yourself that, and that will answer your question. Sorry, that was a really long answer to that. James the Games, thank you very much for your support. Confused Nyan, Canadian Jet Tech Agent JC, YouTube channel, Agent JC, has videos describing the EID for some 737 CFM56 engines, as well as the check valves themselves. Ah, very cool. Yeah, Agent JC, I think I've been in contact with him actually, because I think I actually borrowed some a part of the video, a video about jet engines. And I recognize Agent JC. Yeah, I think so. So I think I've been in contact with him before. It's cool. And his channel is great. Go and check it out if you haven't. So, Sor Gatron, thank you for your support, my friend. Have you heard of the upcoming flight simulator airplane mode, where players enjoy a window seat in economy class? Do you think it'll take off? I haven't heard of it, and no, I don't think so. It's a simulator where you just sit and look out the window. You're not going to do something. Or you're at least going to buy something from the cabin crew when they come and ask you for something. You never know. You know, there might be a winning concept. I'm not going to be playing it, but sure. Sitting in economy seat. I love that people do those kind of things, though. And you never know. Like, I wouldn't have come up with that. Maybe there's going to be a lot of people who would love to sit and simulate sitting in economy class for hours. Anyway. So, we have a name here who is in another alphabet, which I cannot read, unfortunately. So I'm going to just say, cool dude. Starting my ATPLs in the next 2 weeks. Advice. Yeah, take a deep breath and tell your family that you won't be seeing them for a while. The ATPLs are extremely, they're very intense. Okay. It's not that hard. Like most of the things can be easily learned during the ATPLs. Don't be afraid of it. Each subject is definitely something that most people can get through. It's just a sheer amount of it. 14 subjects that needs to be learned together and then be sat through, I think, in 3 different exams or 3 different exam weeks. So it's really important that that you tell your friends and family that this is really intense and that you are going to need to focus completely on that. B, that you take at least 1 day a week off. All right, and that I mean off. I mean going out, bicycling, running, playing pool, going to the gym, whatever, in order to just kind of clear your head so that you can remain and stay focused. That's really important. That's probably the best advice I can give you right now, and just stay focused and do your best. Because you really want to try to get first-time passes on those exams. Like that can be really important, actually. Kunarai, thanks for live streaming on my birthday. Well, happy birthday! So, yours is your birthday today, is it? I wanted to become a pilot, but I can't because of my lazy eye. Can I become an ATC controller? I'm not sure. Like when it comes to medical advice, I never give medical advice, right? I'm not a qualified aeromedical examiner. So for me to sit here and tell you what you can and cannot do is it would be wrong. But I can do one thing, and that is to sing. Like actually, I can't do that either, but I'll try. So. Happy birthday to you. Come on, everybody. I know that there's almost 1,000 of you here now, so sing together with me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kunarai. Happy birthday to you. Yay! Cool. So, let's see, so skip the beat here. Do you prefer LED or halogen landing lights on the 727? The LEDs are great, right? It's no question. The LEDs are great because they're much, much brighter. They illuminate things much better. So I like the LEDs. There's one downside though, and that is if you lose like a ray of LEDs, if something happens, then you're grounded, like the whole unit is out. Okay, while on the old headlights that we had, the old halogen ones, then you could have a bulb that went out and you would just write that in and say, okay, fair enough, we can't use that one, but we can use all the others, which means that you can dispatch. But since now with the LEDs, it's just one set of arrays and it's just different parts of it that's used for like the turn-off lights and the landing lights, for example. If we have a problem with one, it just shuts down that whole side and it's a no-go. So that's a bit of a problem, but the light of it is fantastic. Clay Humans, thanks Peter. I went from an extremely nervous flight to being genuinely interested in aviation. I have ADHD. I know I can't get a commercial license, obviously. Can you get a private pilot license? First of all, I wouldn't be surprised if you can actually get a normal license, like a CPL license. What I would definitely not rule it out, okay? ADHD is one of those things that can be, that you can actually overcome. Depending on how much it is, and you cannot be under medication. Like if you need medication, then you cannot get, I don't think that you can even get a PPL. But if you are free from medication for up to 6 months, then if you talk to an AME, once again, I believe that you can actually get a medical. And then it's just about you controlling it enough in order to be able to get through the exams and all of that. So don't cut yourself short, all right? But otherwise, yeah, you probably, once again, providing that you can keep yourself off medication for 6 months, I think you can get a PPL. But once again, talk to an AME because I am not one. But really happy to hear that you're free of your anxiety. I am building right now a course for nervous flyers, and I'm really hoping that it's going to help people. I think that it's going to be a really good, I have a good, I put together a kind of a good model of how I want to do it, which is different from other things that are out there, and I hope that I'll be able to help quite a few people with it. It's going to be interesting to do anyway. Admiral Seebeck, heyo. I am hoping to become a pilot, but I'm 15, so there's a few things that I can do. Any recommendations? Yeah, so once again, when we open up the Airline Pilot Club, go over there and do the indicative assessment, because it's going to give you a really good indication about your aptitude, your attitude. And if you're 15, then there's probably going to be some areas that need you work on, but it's going to highlight to you through the report that you'll get back exactly what those areas are. And also, if you're become a full member of the club, we'll be able to kind of point you in the right direction of, you need to do this and you need to do that. All right. So doing that will give you, and this is why I wanted to start the Airline Pilot Club. So people ask me, like, why would you want to go into something like that? It's not only me, it's more people involved. But that's because I'm getting so many of these questions. I'm getting so many questions of A, like, which school should I go to? B, can I become a pilot? And I wanted to be able to tell people, go to this place and get the answer to those questions first. All right? So go to the airlinepilotclub.com right after this live stream is done. I'll have my helpers here put the links up. Guys, if you're moderating, can you put the airlinepilotclub.com into the comment field so that people can click on it easy and go and have a look at it, just to see what the 8 stages are. But remember, it is work in progress. There's still stuff to do, and you're not able to become a member just yet. All right, but very soon you will be, and then I will be doing more videos explaining what to do. But if you're 15, if you're early, if you're young, the time is on your side, right? Right now, there's no rush getting into this industry, so you can use this to get your grades up, to do great in school, focus on your maths and your physics and your English skills, and get that done, and start planning for how you are going to go through, if you want to do it modular or integrated, or what you're going to do. So time is on your side at the moment. Richard Burris, have you read the book Night Over Water, a fictional story about the last flight of Pan Am Clipper by Ken Follett? No, I haven't actually. Sounds like something that I should probably have a look at. I should read so many books. There's so many fantastic books out there about aviation, but also non-aviation. This thing is killing my reading. I could probably have an hour or two of reading time per day, but instead I am just working on my different social medias, and I'm answering questions, and I'm sending out posts on my Facebook page and things like that. So I don't know. Well, the way that it looks now, it won't be much flying for me anyway during the winter. So I'll probably have as much time as I want, and even more than that for reading books. Ish Bindish Gush. Peter, do you know the first female ATC was from GDR? No, I did not know that. Cool. Thank you. James Golding. Why do airlines fly via waypoints rather than flying direct to the destination? Because it's easier to control the flow that way, right? It is much easier to make sure that you have the stipulated distance between aircraft, timings between aircraft, and can control the flow of airplanes into a certain destination when you know the exact route they're flying. Also, it's an old system. It was the way that it was built from the beginning, when it was built on these radio beacons like VORs and NDBs. And it's been working like that ever since. However, in a not too distant future, I think we're going to start to see a lot more direct routings, because now with the onslaught of GPS and IRS systems and stuff, we could probably control it in a different, more efficient way that wouldn't use as much carbon fuel. So, I think that we will see it within my lifetime. We'll definitely see much more direct routings. For now, it is a working system, but a system that is definitely crumbling. Not right now, because there's very little flying, but normally it is. Eric C. Please put this towards your Swedish coffee fund. Thank you for all you do. Watching live from Syracuse, New York. Coffee to you, man. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, guys, if you like these Boeing t-shirts, or if you're an Airbus guy, or if you're an Antonov, or if you're a Piper, a Cessna, or indeed an engineer, or a ground controller, or a dispatcher, or a ground handler, you can go and you can look at my team collection. We are creating new teams, and anytime someone comes in with a great new suggestion about, oh, I want my team, I want to team this or that up here, we create a new team t-shirt, right? It just takes us a little while. I have a fantastic graphic designer who's quick on doing them. But there is this one, the Boeing. I think here in the chat, if you go to the top of the chat, you can click on that one to go to my Teespring store. But there's loads of other stuff as well. And if you go to mentorpilot.com, which is down here, mentorpilot.com, there is a store there as well, and there's loads of other merch available to you. So go and check that out. That's another way of supporting the channel. And Erin, thank you. Erin, by the way, I said guy, might be a girl. Sorry, in that case. Dog Polly, all passengers who were on flight 6215 on Tuesday from Sante to Cardiff have been ordered to self-isolate after 7 confirmed cases of coronavirus, considered as close contacts of those tested positive for COVID-19. Yeah, right. That's another thing. Okay, that doesn't necessarily need to be some kind of. It doesn't need to be a transmission on the flight. It could be a transmission within a group that was on the flight. Okay, we don't know that. We'll probably know. And I haven't seen it, so I can't say anything about it. But this is a precaution. And precaution is a different thing, right? It's the same here in Spain. If you've been to a party and someone has tested positive on that party and you start to have symptoms, then you need to self-isolate. So that's just the system working. But I feel very sorry for them because it disrupts life. Like, I did not enjoy being isolated in my room for 5 days. Not at all. Ian, Jill, Petter, sorry I'm late. What are you doing at the moment? Are you flying? If you have discussed it already, apologize. Well, I've mentioned it in the beginning. What I've said basically is that from what I've heard, because of the lack of forward booking on my base, and it doesn't look like I'll be flying more this winter. Maybe I'll be able to go and fly somewhere else in the network on a limited basis, but I am myself kind of mentally preparing myself for not having any kind of flying income until next summer. All right, that's not because someone has told me that that's the case. It's just because I personally am planning for that, and I don't feel sorry for myself. Actually, I'm really happy, and you know that you're part of my support crew and my Patreon crew. I am once again so grateful that I have this channel, that I have my Facebook page, my YouTube channel, the Mentour Aviation app as well, but especially my Patreon crew, because I know that I can take that. I know that if I don't get to fly until next summer, and in fact, I am willing to give away my flights to other colleagues who needs it more than me, because I can. All right, because you guys, especially you guys who are in my Patreon crew, that's only about 0.3% of the people who are watching my videos are actually part of my Patreon crew. You guys are supporting me financially in a way that enables me to do that. It enables me to sit back and use this time to create on my channel, to build relationship with other YouTubers, to create courses for nervous flyers. If it weren't for you, I mean, YouTube income is like this. It can be really good 1 month and it can just drop down depending on how the economy is going. But Patreon is different. So once again, Patreon, if you are a patron out there, I want to take this opportunity to say a huge thank you to you because if I'm not flying until next March or April, then that's the sure thing that I have. So a huge thank you. That's all I can say. You are really important, and not only for the financial help that you're giving, but also because of the the feedback I get from you, the quality control of what I'm doing, the suggestions. I don't know if you guys have, if you're not part of my Patreon crew, you don't know that, but I have a Discord server that's available for people who have signed up on mentorpilot.com and my Patreons, and you can share pictures with each other inside of there, and I can share pictures with you, and sometimes we have these Zoom calls, and it's just a really, really cool dynamic inside of that group. So huge thank you. But that's where things are right now. And if I'm not going to fly, then I am going to be using this time to create other things for you guys. I just hope that I'll be able to travel to create cool things in simulators, for example. Noah Williams, idea for enhanced aircraft COVID safety. Instruct packs to turn on gasper valves for positive pressure, like pilot's oxygen mask. Yeah, well, I mean, they do. We have the risers anyway. Like the difference in rate of air kind of circulation, it does less than you think. But sure, I mean, at least it will keep you clear of it. The air that's coming from the gas outlets is clean. It's gone through, either it's coming straight out from the bleed air system, or it is coming through the HEPA filters. So it is clean. So it means that if you have it pointed down onto your face, that at least gives a little bit of a shield to you. Good idea. But once again, like it's the I wouldn't be too worried about the air quality inside of an aircraft. William Cosgrove, greetings from FL Space Coast. Cool, Florida Space Coast. Do you think space tourism will impact the airline industry? If so, what do you think will happen to the industry? No, I don't. Unless something completely different comes out that is much more economically viable than space tourism is going to be for the very, very richest half percentage point of the population. We're never going to sit and think like, oh, I've already been to Italy. Let's go to Mars. No, or let's go out into the atmosphere and take a tour around the world. It will need a completely new type of system for that. Nothing of what we see right now. So no, I don't think I don't see it as a problem, at least not for me or for my generation. It might be in the future if they come up with some other power source, for example. Then, I mean, if we would have an engine, a power source that can do it, shot out to the atmosphere, going outside and then kind of drifting in. If you do a extreme long haul flight, like you go to Florida, to Australia or whatever, that would be the best. That would be the most efficient way of doing it. But no, it's far away. Sarah Ansel, thank you very much. I would love to have a little piece of cake. That would be great. Peter Pete, when do you think Europe will open up for Americans? When the Americans get things under control, I think. So, well, hopefully after November. I don't know. It's very hard to say. But at the moment, the at least the feeling that we get in here is that the virus is completely rampant in the US still, and there is no real conformity on how it's being dealt with, and half the country doesn't believe in it, and hence does not do what it's taken. In fact, it's become politicized. And if there's something that makes me mad, it's when security and safety become politicized. Can you imagine if you take this one step further, it's like one party deciding that it is anti-constitutional to have seatbelts in cars, and the other does think that it's constitutional, and you turn that into a political question, and then half of the country drives without seatbelts and the other does have seatbelts. Like, for me, it is unfathomable. I can't understand it. I cannot go to a place where you turn safety that is non-political, that comes from scientists that know what they're talking about, and they say that you should be doing this in order to keep yourself safe, and then one side turns around and say that I'm not going to do that because I think that is a political thing. Like, right, I don't normally go into politics here, but when I see stupidity, I call it, because that's what I am. As leader, I have to do that. As a if it would happen to me inside of an aircraft, I would go and say exactly the same thing. If I had 10 people that refuses to wear the seatbelt, I would not let them travel. And unfortunately, you can't do that on a large scale. So, but that's why the borders are not being open. I think as long as it doesn't seem like you can put a coherent strategy in and people are actually listening to that strategy, well, then it is not safe to move between, which makes me really sad, because I have so many people I know here who are listening to me now that's in the US and might become even offended at what I'm saying, and the fact that it can offend people and make people angry, that's what makes me sad. Safety and security should never be politicized, not by any party or any entity ever. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Marco B. Hi, Peter. Keep up the great work supporting new pilots. I live near RTM. I often see a BA Embraer take off more steep than the Transavia 737. Is it because of company rules or is the airplane related? Very hard to say without knowing the specifics. It's probably, if it happens all the time, I would say that it is probably aircraft related rather than something else. Maybe they're a little bit more overpowered, something like that, or they just on that route they have very few passengers, which enables them to climb high. Or if it's a short flight, it's possible that they don't carry that much fuel. They might be lighter in relation to what they can be, hence they can climb faster. It tends to be something like that. Anna, I had to stop PPL training due to some medical issues. I do get to fly commercial for the first time in the next year next month. Wish it was international, but I don't think those of us in the USA will get to do so anytime soon. No, like I said, it's very sad. Oh man, I miss this. I wish this year was over. I really do. 2020, I'm going to look back at it not fondly at all. I don't think anyone will. And yeah, I don't know what to say really, because you're absolutely right. You probably won't be able to travel internationally for a while. I think it's going to take a while. And that's why I think that the first thing that's going to pick up is going to be short to medium haul. Long haul is going to be struggling for a long time to come yet. And that's until we have a vaccine that has global supplies that can be reaching all of the countries equally, or we've just learned to live with this thing. I have a feeling that that's what's going to happen. I think that we will figure it out. We will figure out exactly how dangerous it is and how to avoid it for the people that are at risk, and then society will kind of start moving around that, and we'll get back to some kind of normality, albeit wearing masks in large places and stuff. I think the masks are here to stay. Not completely for everyone, but I think that we will, from now on, we will see masks and we will not think that it looks strange. Oh, I'm well behind here. Sorry to hear about your PPL training, by the way. I hope that you're feeling better and that you get better soon, and get back onto training again. Dave Swedes, me and many international students are stuck at home away from our friends and dreams. That's why I want to send my support to all pilots and cadets worldwide. We do need you to bring us together again. Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's how we are as humanity. However, one thing that I will say is that I really hope that that there will be some changes coming out of this. Like there is some new things that I want you to keep your eyes open for. And I know that if I say electric flight, you guys think about these drones that are flying around and like flying cars and stuff. But in fact, I am in contact with a company who's really interesting. It's called Heart Aerospace. And it's a Swedish company, believe it or not. But they're building an airliner, an electric airliner, which can take 19 people and can fly for about 400 to 500 kilometers. And you might think that that's not much or whatever, but there's one thing that I think that you don't understand, and that is if they can make that working, if they can make that happening, then there are some city pairs that have not been financially viable to fly between. Quite a few. If you look up towards the north, look at Scotland, look in Canada, look in North America as well, quite a few places there, Sweden, Finland, Russia, China, where it has never been financially viable to fly between those places before. But with electric flight, since it is so much cheaper both with maintenance and fuel, you could get that to work. So I think that there might be something coming out of it. I'm working on an episode right now about this actually, where there can be a whole new branch on the aviation tree, something that hasn't been financially viable before, but will be now. And if that happens, if there's a whole new tree branching out, there's going to be an equal amount of new pilots needed, right? That's going to fly these planes between city pairs that weren't possible before, but all of a sudden will be financially viable. So there are things with this pandemic as well that has rushed the kind of movement inside of the aviation industry forward several years, maybe even decades. So, not all which stinks is bad, or something. Something like that. Okay, cool. That was a bit of a side show. So, still 77. How do you have the nav data updated in 737NG? With a USB stick, and how often? Is it updated every time there is a new AirX cycle? It is updated every time there's a new AirX cycle. I believe it's updated by a big laptop that's being connected to the aircraft, and then that uploads the files onto our FMC, and then we can change it over. So if it is every AirX cycle, I am not 100% sure, but I do believe that is the case. George Morris, what damage, if any, can be sustained from hard landing? Does the gear have to be inspected afterwards? Yeah, if it's more than 2.1 G, I think, then you need to have an engineering inspection. But it's just a visual inspection. It has to be much harder than that. If you start to see like creasing on the body, for example, because it's not going to be the landing gear. Landing gear is extremely sturdy. But if you see that the body has been bent a little bit, which can happen on extremely hard landings, well, then there's a whole overhaul of the aircraft, needed. You have to go through it with like a toothpick and check out every little nook and cranny in it. So yeah, landing gear, of course, you can get some oil leaks or whatever. But generally speaking, landing gear is extremely sturdy. Like, it can take a lot of punishment. But it is there's a G level for those inspections. If I believe that I've gotten, I don't see those G levels, by the way. I don't know how many Gs it was when I landed. I have to judge. And if I think it was a hard landing, and generally you feel that, then you just have to do an inspection. You have to call the engineering, and they have to call them and check over the aircraft to make sure that it is safe. Brady Tribble, I was on a United flight the other week where the pilot was on his last flight of 36 years for the company. Very cool, yet sad to see. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And now, obviously, as the CARE Act is disappearing in the US, then we will see much more of those very sad last flights. It's sad if it's something that they didn't want. Not so sad if it's something that they have chosen to do. Going into retirement can be a beautiful thing. And if you've been flying for 36 years, you've certainly had your experiences in the cockpit. But yeah, I hope that it was his or her choice and not due to this pandemic. Why is the fuel calculated in both kilos and liters? We actually only calculate it in kilos now. We tend to write in liters. We get the liters back. That tends to be what the fuel truck is measuring, because the fuel truck is measuring liters, because that's the only thing it can do. And then we have to convert to make sure that what we've gotten in liters makes sense as to how many kilos we should have. So we have the specific gravity of the fuel, and we do the calculation. I have to do it for each flight I do. I have to verify that what I have calculated to be correct is within 200 kilos of what it should be. All right. So you calculate how many kilos you need. And then you divide that with a specific gravity to see how many liters it's going to be. And when you get the liters, then you take that times the specific gravity, and that will then bring you to a kilo count. And that should be within 200 kilos, because you don't know exactly how much the specific gravity is. If it is within 200 kilos, then it's okay. If it's not, there's something wrong. Then it might be something wrong in the counter, for example, in the fuel truck. But we have to make sure that we have as much fuel as we need. Because if there's something faulty with our fuel gauges or in the fuel truck or whatever, then you can end up in a very, very sad situation, which we do not want to be in. Richard 5030, thank you very much for your support. Clay Humans, my whole department does 2 weeks 2 weeks one off. So does 2 weeks one off, fly in and fly out. We have been on flights with confirmed cases. No one has been affected as long as you take no one has been affected as long as you take the precautions. It is completely safe. Yeah, that's what I've been trying to say as well. Thank you for helping me out on that one. Petra Olsson, great to have you here, Petra. Can you please do a video about the Qantas Flight 72? Yes, there's quite a few of these backed up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to look for specific accidents or incidents, not only where there has been no loss of lives, because there's only so many of those. But I'm also going to look at the ones that have changed the aviation industry in its core, that have changed a lot of procedures, for example. And those are the ones that I'm going to start making onto that video series. Qantas Flight 72, I'll have a look. Sam Petrus, hey Sam, Thank you for being here tonight. Hello, Peter. Why are skydive planes able to fly with the door open when passenger planes seems not to be able to recover from a door or window opening? Yeah, it's different. They are not pressurized. So they don't have, like, there's no problem with flying with the door open. In fact, I could fly unpressurized with the door open as well. There's nothing that happens to that. What's the problem is when you have a rapid or explosive decompression due to a door blowing open. I'm thinking about was it the DC-10s that that had that problem where the cargo door blew open, but that was more due to the fact that it actually damaged the airframe structure, and it also blew out and damaged components behind it. So there's nothing inherently damaged with flying with the door open. That can be done, but if you're pressurized and it suddenly breaks, then that is a problem generally. Campusto, have you already tried the new Microsoft Flight Sim 2020? Any chance of a multiplayer session with you and your supporters? No, I haven't tried it yet. And there's a good question. There's a good reason for that. I have tried to get my computer upgraded. It's taken weeks, and now they come back to me and say that they can't upgrade it. So I'm going to buy a new computer in order to fly it. But also, I have kind of held off a little bit because of what I'm really interested in trying on that thing is the 737. Me flying around in an Airbus or flying around in a Cessna is, I mean, anyone can do that. I know Captain Joe did a video about that. It's not really my thing. I don't do much flight simming anyway. So if I'm going to go in and start doing flight simming videos or doing live streams or things like that, I'm going to do it on an aircraft that I can actually teach you something on. You know, it's beautiful, it's cool, but I can tell you whether or not it's good. I can tell you how you're supposed to fly it and things like that. So you, like when PDMG or whatever comes out with their add-on 737, then you can expect me to start flying it as well. And I would love to go out and do some flights with my supporters, especially my Patreons. Jake Schroeder, what do you say about US? What you say about the US is exactly true. I am so embarrassed for my country right now. Thank you for speaking common sense. Well, sorry to hear that. And I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I hope people understand that. Like, there's a couple of things that you guys should know about me. All right? I am very, very interested in politics. I really am. This channel is not is not about politics. So when I do these live streams, I have to bite my tongue because I would love to go into discussions about politics and stuff, but I know that that's not what this is about. This is about aviation, and I love aviation, and I respect aviation. So the only thing that anytime that you'll hear me becoming vaguely political is when I start talking about these things, where politics, for some reason, has gotten into aviation where it shouldn't be. All right? I respect aviation enough to keep politics out. So politics should stay out of aviation. Basically, that's it. So even though I would love to, and if you're a friend of mine, you know that I can sit and I can have very political opinions, and they're generally not neither right or left. They tend to be anchored in my way of believing how leadership should be. Okay? Because my thing is leadership. My thing is what a good leader should be. This is what I'm teaching when I teach new captains to fly. This is what I'm teaching when I teach first officers and how they should be dealing with people around them. This is what I try to improve on every single day. All right, every day I try to become a leader that someone would be listening to, following without me having to push them. So some leadership qualities that I speak about, and I've done videos about this, is like I talk about honesty. I talk about knowledge, the fact that you need to know what you're talking about, the fact that you need to be able to listen, that you need to be able to take criticism, that you need to know when you are wrong and acknowledged when you are wrong. You need to be able to read an enormous amount of stuff, because that's the only way that you keep up with the industry. If you don't keep up with the industry, you become constantly worse at what you're doing, and people will not respect you anymore. So when I speak leadership, these are the kind of things that I'm talking about, and I can give you perfect examples of where someone has exhibited a different quality, something that does not apply to that. That's what's important to me. Now people will say that, well, that is politics, and in that case, yes, absolutely. All right. But that's all I'm going to say about it. I will not attribute it to anyone. I will not tell that anyone is better than another. I will just ask you to please ask yourself that leaders that you want to follow have those exact qualities, because it is really important who we follow. It is really important. All right. Pramesh, Pagedar, will aircraft of the future be super tall like the Concorde to accommodate ultra-high bypass engines of the future? Hard to say. If they're going to make them even bigger than the biggest ones that we see right now, it's unlikely that they're going to be able to keep the same design, that they're going to be able to have them under the wings. It's more likely that it's going to be connected to the body or maybe even on top of the wings in some way. So it's very hard to say how exactly that's going to look. But I think that there's a possibility that we might see completely new designs, right? So I'm really looking forward to that. But no, I would be lying if I could stay here and sit here and try to imagine the kind of designs that the new type of engines, the ultra high bypass fans, is going to need. But it's hard to see how they're going to be able to make the landing gears much bigger, for example, much higher than they are now. Jon Pilot, one space shuttle main engine can propel about 15 737s. The SSME produces 418,000 pounds of thrust at sea level. Yeah, of course, it's a rocket engine. There's a lot of go in those things. The problem with them obviously is the reusability. It's very cool to have an engine like that. It's less cool to try to refuel it when you want to do a 25-minute turnaround. Scott Lowry, hi Petter. At Ibiza they have remote stands. They're almost doing a U-turn to face the main building. How do you know if you are bang on the taxi line? Training. I don't have any fancy camera on my nose wheel. Some aircraft do. So in the 737, you just need to start learning when, how much you need to overshoot a taxi line for when you start turning. And after a while, you start to feel where the aircraft is behind you. So I know, I don't need manometers to put a 737 bang on the taxi line after a 90-degree turn. You learn that after a while. But that's a lot of the command training is focused on taxiing, and taxiing slowly until you know your aircraft and know which angles to look for and things like that. It's really fun. Actually, taxiing is one of those things that a lot of people think, well, the funniest thing with being a pilot in order to judge your skill is how you land. And that's true until you start taxiing, because taxiing gives the same kind of feeling. When you taxi well and you line up the aircraft nicely on the runway after like a 180 turn that we have to do sometimes and stuff, that gives you the same kind of feeling of accomplishment as when you do a good landing. So taxiing is a really, really nice thing to start learning. Actually, it's really fun to do. Alec Petseski, thank you very much for your support. Lemon Lost, what is a good vertical speed for climbing in Microsoft Flight Simulator in a 747-800? I've been using 4,000. 4,000 feet per minute is a high climb rate, and it depends on what altitude you're at and what weights you are. So it's very hard to say. Like a 737 will be climbing just after departure, if it's a normal weight, maybe between 2,500 and 3,500 feet per minute. Okay. At altitude, at higher altitude, that goes down. So from maybe flight over 340 and up to 380, it's between 2,000 to 1,000 feet per minute. It should be able to do about 1,000 feet per minute the last 1,000 feet. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 700-800 feet per minute the last feet. Something like that. Mani Rahmachundran, you're fantastic. Keep up the good work. Can you be kind enough to shoot a video of auroras if and when you get a chance? I'd love to do that. Sadly, down here in the south, we very rarely see them. When I used to fly up to northern Sweden, we saw them a lot. And the one time that I did a delivery from Seattle over to Dublin, we flew over Greenland. There was loads of aurora borealis. It was beautiful. The northern light, they're beautiful. Beautiful. And I'd love to do that. So if I see them, I will. Natalie Olsen, in an emergency, why do some ATC sector ask for the time remaining and some in gallons and kilos of fuel? Time remaining, obviously, because they want to know how much time they have to deal with it. All right, how much time they have to get emergency equipment in force, to get rid of all the other traffic. The other reason is that the fire chief will always ask for how much fuel there is on board. So if they come in and they crash, we can judge, and I say we because I used to be an airport firefighter. We can judge the risk of fire. You know, how bad could it be if you're coming in with a fully loaded 777 that has a problem just after takeoff, and they haven't been able to dump the fuel and come back in. Like my video about the Qantas Flight 32. I mean, those guys, they were full of fuel, and that's a nightmare from a firefighting perspective, because if they do crash, you have maybe hundreds of tons of jet fuel that could ignite, right? But if you're coming in with very little fuel, well, then the risk becomes smaller. So it has more to do with that. Timothy Simmons, Mentor, you just did a video on the glider plane. If the pilots did realize they were losing fuel and mitigated leak, how would they balance the remaining fuel in the aircraft? They wouldn't. No. But they would know that they have a fuel leak. So they know they have that problem. And you can fly and control the airplane even if you have a lot of imbalance, right? It's going to start becoming a bit problematic, especially if you have an engine failure. But you can continue to fly it. But it was estimated on that. I forgot to mention that in the video, but they did a couple of simulations. And if the pilots would not have started the crossfeed, if they would have done the checklist, realized that they had a fuel leak and closed the crossfeed, they would have landed at their airport with a working engine, probably one working engine, with about 1.5 to 2 tons of fuel on board. So the whole cross-feeding thing that they were doing, not thinking about the fuel leak and getting confused about it, that's what actually was that drained the tanks of fuel. Valerio Viscraneo. Hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Valerio, that's nice to have you here. Hi, started my ATPL while working, taking it slow. Yeah, that's probably a smart move. You'll be able to work, you'll be able to get up, gather up some money, keep your debt low, like we were talking about in the beginning of the live stream here. And that way you're mitigating risks, and it's all about that. You'll notice that when you start flying as well, that we always work with mitigating risks. So this is you mitigating risks. So good stuff. Best of luck with your training. Guys, you can stop doing the super chats now because we're coming up to 1 hour and 15 minutes, and I want to be able to work through the ones that I have. So thank you very much for your support so far. Unless you just want to support, that's another way, of course. Skooksmart, if and when Boeing launches a 797, do you see it being a 737 or a 757 replacement? Or do you think it will be a different size or class altogether? I think it's going to be something in between. Like if I were to guess, it will be something, around 210 to 250 seats. Somewhere around there. So that will make it more of a 757 replacement than a 73. But I think that's the kind of sweet spot, to be able to fly like a 737, but taking 230 passengers or something like that. Then you have an extremely well-working plane for you, which is kind of what the Airbus 310 XL is doing. Okay, so that they've kind of nailed that. But it's also, I should be saying that it's also way depending on what's happening with the industry now, how the industry is going to react, how it's going to look different after this. I don't think that any of the airplane makers are doing very well right now, and I think that they are probably awaiting and then waiting with the kind of billions of investments they're going to have to fork out in order to do a new aircraft until they see what this pandemic is going to bring with it. Harland Anderson, I will explain the politics of division to you. No need, but thank you. Airbus 350 versus Boeing 787. What's your choice? Can we expect a video on this? I actually have done a video on that already. Go in and have a look. I flew, but I didn't fly them as pilot. What I would love to do is fly one as a pilot and the other as a pilot. So please, Boeing and Airbus, if you're watching this, do invite me. I would love to come and fly your flagship, beautiful new aircrafts. So, but as a passenger, it was very tight. They're extremely good aircraft, both of them, but I enjoyed the 350 better. Like I thought that the Airbus 350 felt better than the Boeing 787. However, I'm not going to say anything until I have flown them and I want to fly them. So, And that was the end of the super chat. Let's take some normal chat questions here as well. So, Libyan Leon, would you say that it's better to get trained by a major airline for free and have a guaranteed job, but also, yeah, of course, it's no question about it. If you get someone to pay for your training and give you a job, that is better than and basically everything else. So it continues here. Having to pay them back out of your salary for a long amount of time or pay for your pilot training yourself with flight school. You mean being bonded? I would always go for being bonded. If I had a chance, I would choose that every single time. Because you don't stand any personal risk. You will still get a fine, like a good income, but you are going to be bonded towards a specific airline. So if it's an airline that you like and you can see yourself working with, that is always the line of choice. The only time that you don't choose that is in the market where you can pick and choose jobs. Right? Then it might be a good idea to train yourself out of your pocket and then decide that you want to live there. But that's not the reality. It has never been the reality, and it will never be the reality. So to be bonded is always a good idea. Let's see some more questions here. Okay, what do the pilots do if their instrument screens fail in flight? From Raymond Lee, 3327. So we have, as you've seen in the 737-800, we have 6 different screens. Each of those screens can be changed in between each other. So if one screen goes, if my primary flight display blanks, then it automatically jumps over to the navigation display. We still have the first officer's navigation display. We don't really need to. If both my screens blank, then I can put the PFD on the top of the instruments of the engine instrumentation display. The lower one becomes a combined engine instrumentation display. And if those two goes, the first officer could potentially choose engine on one side and PFD on the other and skip the ND, because you don't necessarily need it if it's not like weather radar needed or something like that, or you might need it for navigational purposes. But then it started to be tricky when you started. But then again, when you have 6 backup systems, you tend to be fairly okay about it. If everything goes, you have the standby instruments. All right, the standby instruments will be able to navigate on them. You'll be able to fly on them. And in some of our 737s, they are still analog. So they wouldn't be affected if all of the screens would be blasted out by a nuclear bomb somewhere or whatever it might be. Even though I think that's probably the least of our problems in that case. Hola, bienvenido. Bueno, hola. Muy alegre que verte aquí. So, would lockable overhead luggage cabins be a good idea to be locked from the flight deck? No, it would be a disaster. Yeah, I know you're thinking about locking them in case of an evacuation, but no, I can't. I don't, because the only thing that you'll end up having is loads of people standing in the aisle trying to open the overhead bin, delaying the evacuation. The only thing that we can do is to tell people to just leave it, go. Leave it, go. That's it. If you start to do something that will force human behavior in a different way and they don't understand it, and then the only thing that's going to happen is more confusion. It's going to go even slower. So it sounds like a good idea. It probably wouldn't work. And yeah, I think, have you ever experienced a bird strike from Farhan? Many times, many times, sometimes once a week. So that is very common to get bird strikes. Very rare to get a bird, like a bad bird strike though. And yeah, guys, I think that's it more or less. Once again, hugely, fantastically fun to have you here to do these live streams. I love to be able to interact with you guys. If you want the t-shirt, head over to Teespring. You have links below the video, and you also have links here in the chat if you want to go and check it out. Otherwise, like I said, consider becoming a Patreon. Consider going in and becoming a member of my Patreon crew. There are loads of cool perks that comes with it, but mostly it is securing up what I'm doing for the next couple of months when I don't think that I'll be flying much. And I do appreciate and thank every one of the members of my Patreon crew. It's thundering like crazy outside here. So a huge thank you to all of you who've been on the super chat, who've been supporting the channel, and for all of you who've been here, taking time out of your busy day to listen to me rambling about political stuff. next time, I don't know when the next live stream will be. I will definitely let you know. I hope that you're following me on Facebook and on Instagram and on YouTube, obviously. And Adrian, if you could be so nice to put up the address to the airlinepilotclub.com, so www.theairlinepilotclub.com, so that you guys can go over there and check it out and write yourself up on the email list. If you think that you are going to need support or help during your road towards becoming a pilot going forward, then that's the place to be, definitely. Have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are. Stay tuned for more videos to come, and yeah, bye-bye.